I first have to say I am not successful. I'm not even close to being successful. I've had success in things as far as being able to live out fantasies and have titles and be things and do things and have things that I've always wanted to experience. But the process of getting there is pretty clear to me. I don't believe that there are 7 steps or 5 steps or, thinking about it and all of a sudden it happens. I think there's an actual process in discovery of what you want to do, let alone being successful at something, anything at all. I think you need a formal introduction, debt free formal introduction, as in you pay for it in cash, school or a training program or a seminar or a coach, an instructor. And then I think you need to put that into practice. And this particular part of the process doesn't necessarily have to be a paid period. You just have to get good. You just have to master it. You just have to be good enough to be paid or good enough to sit at the table or good enough to actually do it and not be a clown and have mastered it and be able to play with the big boys where the real money is made. And then that's the third part, is actually going out in the woods and killing something and killing it and dragging it back to the cave and you know really having the feast. And those are like the 3 steps, I would say. I mean, I know I just said that, there's no steps, but I would say that's more the process, is that you get some form of formal debt-free instruction, and then there's an apprentice period, a period of mastering what you do and getting good and being good and just really being a winner at what you do, and then putting your nuts on the table and actually seeing if you can do it for a living, or actually seeing if you can accomplish your goal and be in the space of accomplishment. And it might not happen on the first time, that process with one endeavor. It might not happen on the 100th time, that process, that endeavor. But that's what it's going to take. I mean, even if you have a master's degree from Harvard, you can't just be thrown into Wall Street and expect to, know what you're doing within the first couple of days of doing it. There's a process of getting good, even with those guys. They have excellent educations. They have excellent formal instruction. Now, Wall Street, you either get it or you're out. So, the process of getting good is probably shorter than most people, can afford. An example of that in my life is, I would say, pro wrestling. Pro wrestling or sketch comedy is probably a better one. I had formal instruction in sketch comedy and it took about a year to do. I apprenticed with a couple theaters, got some debt-free instruction with a couple conservatories in improvisational acting, sketch writing, things like that. And then I produced my own sketch comedy for the internet and just different demo tapes, and we'd sell DVDs to our friends, and and every DVD we sold or every video we made or I made, it just got better and better. And that was pretty much me and my team's focus for about 5 or 6 years. And then at the end of that 5 or 6 years, I went out to Hollywood, and within 3 weeks, I had a gig as a sketch comedian, and it was kind of off to the races. I mean, it ended in complete disaster, but the process of instruction in sketch comedy practicing sketch comedy and then doing sketch comedy where it actually matters in Hollywood. That was the process that I had to go through. Because at the beginning, when I was in my early 20s, I wasn't ready for Hollywood. But after my formal instruction and after my process of getting good and mastering it, that's when I was ready for Hollywood. And that's when I did something that most people don't do, and that's get a gig in your desired genre within a couple weeks out in Hollywood. And that's something that I'm proud of. I wish it worked out better, but you just move on to the next endeavor, and you just kind of keep that process in mind and know that that's pretty much how it's done. I mean, how else can you do it? If you don't have a formal introduction to it and you don't practice and get good at what you do, how are you ever supposed to kill it? This isn't some bizarre philosophy or some sort of hocus pocus. I mean, it's just kind of a practical way of looking at an endeavor and, getting it done. And sometimes it takes a year, sometimes it takes 10 years or more. But that's probably the best way to do it. I mean, don't you think? Makes sense to me. It always did. And, obviously you'll have to come up against people that will want to sabotage what you're doing and, get you into trouble or, run you off or whatever. And it happens. It happens a lot. So you just go on to the next thing. I'm 41, and I'm probably about 15 endeavors deep from the time I'm 15 years old. That's when I started working this process. So over 25 years of working this process in numerous endeavors. Some lasted 6 weeks, some lasted 6 years, some lasted, 10 years, like with comedy. But that would be my best advice on the process of success. Now, I'm not saying, the ins and outs of your business I know anything about, because I don't. Especially if you're going for an MBA and you want to be an entrepreneur or anything like that, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Or a doctor or a mechanic or a master mechanic or, master manufacturer or, anybody that's, does custom shoes or custom clothes or anything like that. I wouldn't even know where to begin. But I think you'll find that that's the process of getting there, of becoming a master, custom shoemaker and making the big money. I think that's pretty much the process. I don't know how it couldn't be the process in it, and it's got to be the process of everything. Of course you want to read books. Of course you want to have a foundation of beliefs or spiritual beliefs or just how you go about doing things in your life. And I would stick to those because they're probably going to save you, especially if they're instinctual. But as far as if you were to be able to write it down on a piece of paper and say, step 1, debt-free formal instruction. Step 2, apprenticing / mastering / getting good at what I do. Step 3, killing it. And you allot the time. You allot the energy, you allot the money. But I would say that that's all done in cash. If you have to work a part-time gig or maybe a gig that isn't relevant to what you're doing, just so you can keep up your 4 walls and pay for everything in cash and not have to have credit cards, loans, or mortgages or childcare or anything like that, then I would do it. I wouldn't get anybody pregnant. I wouldn't get married. I wouldn't do anything. I would just really, really hunker down and focus, laser focus on this process. It's very, very important. to your endeavor. Thank you.